Welcome to another episode of Ship a War. This is going to be my top list of movies that terrified me at one point or another in my life or still terrify me till this day.
Ship a War. When ship happens, I'm there.
Now before I go into my list, I just want to say that these movies don't have any particular order to them besides the very last one that I mentioned, which will be the movie that terrified me the most. But all these other movies are just in there because they terrified me at one point or another in my life. So let me go into my first movie, and the first movie is a 1963 movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock called The Birds. Now this movie terrified me, and there was one particular scene that really terrified me, and it's the one scene when the lady walks into the bedroom of this man, and he's laying on the floor, and his eyes have been pecked out by these birds that are just crazy. That one scene was very terrifying for me that I could not watch the movie as a kid completely. I could only watch certain parts of it and was never able to really sit through the movie because I was always afraid of that scene coming up. So for a while I could not watch this movie completely till then I got to a point where I was able to watch it and that one scene really didn't bother me, and now I can watch this movie like any time of the day and I'm fine with it. The next movie is from 1999 movie called The Sixth Sense. Now this is a movie that I watched in the theaters. I still have the ticket stub for it. I remember my brother went to go see this movie before I did, and he really amped it up for me. And when I finally saw it with my friends and seeing some particular scenes in the movie, I remember being pretty terrified by the film. The one scene that really scared me was the scene where he goes to the girl's house, the girl that got killed by her stepmother who poisoned her. There was just particular things about that really scared me, especially the scene where she goes into the tent where he's in. She starts vomiting. I was really terrified by that scene. And there was several really eerie things about this movie that really scared me while watching the film. So there was a lot of things in the movie that really terrified me and scared me enough that I was not able to watch the movie, by myself or be able to watch the movie late at night. The next movie on my list is a 1960 movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock again, and that is Psycho. Now this movie creeped me out because there was certain scenes in the movie that really bothered me. There's the one scene where Vera Miles' character goes down to the basement and she sees a woman sitting in her chair. She's assuming she's the lady of the house. She goes up to the chair and she turns it around and ends up being a skeleton of a dead woman. I remember that scene right there particularly scared me a lot, and there was certain things really scary and eerie about the movie. I remember not being really able to watch the movie in a very comfortable setting for a very long time because there's just certain things in the film which just really creepy, especially the last scene with Norman Bates where he finally got captured. He's like sitting in the jail cell and he's just looking down like all like creepy, and he's all with that creepy smile. Like that scene, that really scared me. He still has his mother's hand and he's like petting it. All those little things really creeped me out as a kid while watching the movie, and till this day it doesn't creep me out as much. I can watch Psycho just fine, but as a kid that just really made me very uncomfortable. The next movie is the 1980s film by Stanley Kubrick called The Shining. Now this movie is a pretty damn creepy movie. Even till this day it still creeps me out. Certain things still creep me out. But as a kid, the one particular scene that always creeped me out, and that is the scene where the two twin girls are in the hallway. They're just standing there. Danny's on his little bike thing. He's riding it. He runs into them and they're like, "Come play with us, Danny. Come play with us." That scene always creeped me out. Oh my gosh. I don't think I really was able to really watch The Shining like all the way through without, having to stop it or not be creeped out by it until very later on in my life, I would have to say. I mean, I've seen the movie several times in my life, but only particular scenes because of that damn come play with us Danny scene, and also the scene with the lady that's in the bathtub and she's all like freaking deformed and stuff, that really creeped me out as well. So there's a lot of particular things in the movie that have made me very uncomfortable as a kid and even as a teenager, and even now as an adult. I watch The Shining and there's still these scenes that still creep me out. So I don't think I'm completely over being creeped out by The Shining, but I'm not as terrified towards it as I was as a kid, where I couldn't really watch the movie without wanting to stop and be like, I need to walk away from this because I do not want to see that one particular scene with the twins or that one particular scene with the lady in the bathroom. The next movie on my list is a 1978 movie called Halloween. This is actually my favorite like horror movie, but it's not the one that scares me the most. This movie, I have to say, is one of those films that as a kid I remember watching it and being scared of the idea of this actually being kind of real. I mean, that's the thing about Halloween. It's scary because it's actually based in kind of a realistic idea that somebody can be sick enough to go around and want to kill somebody, and that's what really scared me, that some guy can go around with a mask and just come during Halloween and start slashing people. And that's what really scared me about Halloween, was just the idea of how this can actually happen. So that's why Halloween, when I was a kid, the idea of it creeped me out and terrified me, because I felt like some guy can actually do what Michael Myers was doing in the movie. The next movie on the list is a 2002 movie called The Ring. Now, this movie, I have to say, it scared me because it reminded me of another movie that's on my list. It's my number one most terrifying movie. There's a little girl. She's kind of evil and she looks nasty. And you put those things together and those things just really bother me. There's just something about the whole idea of a little girl being evil, and at one particular moment in her life she looks freaking gross as hell. And there was a lot of things about this movie just really creepy, especially the one scene where the girl, when they do the flashback and the girl's in the closet and her face is all deformed. Like that one scene, I remember for the longest time I would always look away when that scene would come up. Like, knowing that the scene's gonna come up, I would like just like look on the floor, just look away, and like, okay, it came, I heard the noise, heard the scream, okay, now I can look back up and continue watching the movie. Like, that one particular scene really creeped me out. Also really creeped me out when the little girl comes out of the TV and she's crawling, and then you see her eye and her face, and The Ring was one of those movies that really creeped me out, terrified me for a while. Even till this day, I don't think I can still watch this movie and not feel like I need to turn away and look somewhere else when some particular scenes pop up, because they make me feel very uncomfortable. The next movie on this list is a 1999 movie, and it's called The Blair Witch Project. Now, I know a lot of people can watch this movie now and be like, why is it scary? But you have to understand my history behind this movie. And the history behind this movie, when I went to go see it in theaters, was that it was actually a real documentary. People thought it was real. I remember seeing, things on TV saying this movie's real, it's based on actual true event. And then it didn't help that I had my brother who went to go see it before I did. He came home and he was telling me about the movie, and he was like telling me, oh man, this movie's so creepy. And this is my brother, and my brother's the type of person who doesn't really get scared with movies. So when he was telling me that he was actually scared while watching this movie, and I'm like sitting there like, oh my god, really? Is it that scary? That when I went to finally go see it in theaters and watch the movie thinking, number one, it's real. Number two, it actually terrified my brother. I don't know if it really terrified him, but it actually kind of scared him, that this movie's definitely going to get to me. I went into that theater scared to see this movie, and I came out of the movie terrified of the film because I thought it was based on actual true events. And for the longest time, I had a hard time sleeping because of this movie, because I actually thought this was based on true events, and a witch actually existed in these woods, and she was actually taking children and taking people and killing them. The Blair Witch Project is up there of movies that terrified me because I actually thought it was real at one point in my life when I went to go see it in theaters. The next movie on my list is a 1982 movie called Poltergeist that was produced by Steven Spielberg. And I have to say, this movie is definitely one of those other movies that I had a really hard time sitting through. I don't think I officially ever really watched the whole movie until very much later in my life because I was always terrified about them. There was this, okay, movies with little girls that see any type of particular scary things or their demons or anything just terrify me. Just little girls in horror movies just make me feel very uncomfortable. And this is one of those movies that had that. I mean, there's that one scene where the girl has her hand on the television and she's like, "They're here," like freaking A. That one scene still creeps me out till this day. The old lady who's really short, who was like the psychic lady, she was scary to me for some reason. I remember being scared of her as a kid, and now she doesn't bother me, but when I watch the movies now, she doesn't scare me. But the movie itself is one of those movies that even till this day, I think I still have to watch during the day to feel completely comfortable with, because there's just something about the film itself that was just made me very uncomfortable. And I remember being very terrified of it as a kid, that I never really was able to sit through it and enjoy it as a film until much later. The next movies on my list, yes, there's two movies. The first one is the 1979 movie and the 1986 movie, and that is called Alien and Aliens. Both terrified me. Alien terrified me because I was scared of that one particular scene where the guy comes back onto the ship and the alien pops out of his stomach. That scene terrified me to the point that the one scene in Spaceball where you see the same parody of it scared me. It got to that point that even a movie that parody Alien scared me, because that one particular scene with the alien scared me so much that I couldn't even laugh at the idea of a parody that parody off of that one particular scary scene for me. And then Alien scared me for whatever reason. The Queen scared me. She scared me so much that I remember after watching the movie, I could not have my closet doors open for a long time because I was always afraid that the alien queen would come out of the doors and she would get me. I have to say, those movies terrified me because of certain particular things that are either really silly, like the Queen, which I watch the movie now and it doesn't even bother me, and I'm like, why was I scared of this as a kid? And then the alien popping out of the guy's stomach, like that freaking terrified me so much. But even till this day, I'm a little creeped out by that. A lot more than the Queen. The Queen, I don't really understand my little self and why I was so scared of that. Out of the whole movie, out of everything that happened in Aliens, I was just scared of that one thing of the Queen. I don't know. And the last movie on this list, which is my number one movie that has freaking terrified me since I was 6 years old till this day, for the love of God, and that is The Exorcist. Here's my history about this movie. I was a little kid, I was 6 years old, and a family member was watching the movie in the living room, and me being a kid thinking, oh, they're watching a movie, I want to watch a movie, let me go watch that movie with them. I actually sat through a majority of this film as a child, and since then I've been completely terrified of this movie. I've had a lot of nightmares. I mean, as a kid, it was pretty bad. It was bad to the point that at nights I would wake up just hysterically crying because I could not sleep at night, because I would have the vision of Reagan when she's possessed. My mom and my dad, they try to show me the movie again to see, like, look, it's a silly movie, look, it's all fake. They would try to, make me sit through it to watch it. I wasn't like, a little child, probably a teenager at this point, or maybe my preteens when they would make me watch it again. It wasn't really that they made me watch it. I think it was more like I wanted to watch it so I can get over my fear of it. And I would sit through the movie and try to watch it with my parents, and I sat through this movie several times in my lifetime, and I still, to this point, cannot get over this film. This film still terrifies me, and I don't know when I'll get over this, terror of mine with this movie. I wish I could, because there's so many other movies I know that I watch are probably a lot worse than this film, where I could sit through that with no problem and sleep at night like a baby. But The Exorcist, forget about it. Now that I shared the top movies that terrified me in my lifetime, now I'm curious to hear what are your top movies that scared you, or a movie that still scares you to this day. So that is all for this episode of Ship War. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. About Time is directed by Richard Curtis. It stars Rachel McAdams. Now, the story of this movie is that it's about this guy named Tim. At the age of 21, his father tells him that he has the ability to time travel to the past, not to the future, just to the past. And Tim takes this ability that he now has and he uses it for one reason and one reason only, and that is to get himself a girlfriend. Because he's an awkward guy, he doesn't have luck with girls, so he takes this ability that he can always go back and fix what he does and says to girls,